Liz and Dick are now endorsing Kamala.
Republican vice presidential nominee willing to be interviewed by Tucker Carlson, who is platforming pro-Nazis.
Pro-Nazis. Okay, Liz Cheney's a lunatic.
I've never voted for a Democrat.
Wow.
Donald Trump presents a challenge and a threat fundamentally to the Republic.
A bigger threat than your fake insurrection, the biggest threat to the Democratic Republic is Liz and Dick. The Cheneys have come out and they have made their endorsement. Liz and Dick are now endorsing Kamala. And you'll see here, Liz Cheney was making her rounds on the Sunday shows, trying to warn America how death is coming upon us if Trump wins the White House. Here is what this sounded like from Liz over on ABC.
There are certainly areas where I disagree with Biden administration national security policy, where I've disagreed with Vice President Harris's position on issues. But when it comes to fundamental alliances, when it comes to the importance of NATO, for example, and how important it is for the United States to...
That's what this is all about. Remember when Kamala came out and gave her little speech there at the DNC? She sounded like a war maniac. She sounded like George Bush. She sounded like Dick Cheney. She was raging against Iran. She was pledging everything to Israel. She was endlessly supporting Ukraine against Russia, right? It was like nonstop. It was like no change. And so obviously the Cheneys, who are war-hungry maniacs who only care about NATO and Halliburton, who used to be anathema to the left, who used to be demonized by the left, have now been welcomed in open arms because they are the party of war. And now a lot of people on the left are celebrating this. Finally, they're coming to our side. And you say, wait a minute, Liz has been a fake Republican for years now. And this feels to me like they're trying to counter the RFK enthusiasm. Okay, the Republican Party has gotten Democrats on their team. Tulsi Gabbard, welcome aboard. RFK Jr., welcome aboard. And the list goes on and on. But here is now Liz, right, and the Democrats trying to say, well, we brought that one kid from McCain's family over. He's on our team now. And now we've got Liz Cheney and we got Dick too. Look at us.
Lead in the world. We've seen a sea change. We now have a Republican Party that is embracing isolationism, that is embracing Putin, that, we've seen just in the last week.
Nobody's embracing Putin, okay? It's such a fake talking point. It's not embracing him. We're questioning what the hell we're doing in Ukraine. Why are we spending $100 billion over there for their borders when our borders are wide open? Is that a fair thing to ask? Is it a fair thing to question why they're blowing up their own pipelines, why the Ukrainians are blowing up NATO pipelines and then trying to blame it on the Russians to escalate a world war with them? Are those reasonable questions or not? Why should we be defending NATO if they can't even protect free speech in their countries? That's not in alignment with American values and protecting Western democracy. Those are anti-democratic things. I thought NATO was supposed to be an entity to protect Western democracy. What the hell's it for?
The Republican vice presidential nominee willing to appear, willing to be interviewed by Tucker Carlson, who is platforming pro-Nazis, is himself pushing
pro-Nazis. Okay, Liz Cheney's a lunatic. Not at all was that perspective in that podcast. And she is just going to latch onto any bit of propaganda to distort the truth because she's a dishonest person. Pro-Nazis? Is that what she got out of that podcast? Did she even listen to it?
Pro-Nazi propaganda. That is not the party of Ronald Reagan. And I believe strongly that if you're talking about a national security set of issues and you care about, and there are certainly areas where I disagree.
Okay, one more clip from her.
Pass was for Ronald Reagan in 1984. I've never voted for a Democrat.
Wow.
And it tells you, I think, the stakes in this election. Donald Trump presents a challenge and a threat fundamentally to the Republic.
Okay, a bigger threat than your fake insurrection where you've broken American historical precedent. 234 years. We've never had a prosecution of a political opponent in our country until these psychopaths got in charge. She did her little J6 fake book report. It was an illegal committee. By their own rules, violated their own House rules, H.R. 503. Illegal. That is unlawful. That's dictatorial. That's totalitarianism when you're doing stuff like this and putting your political opponents in jail. The biggest threat to the Democratic Republic is Liz and Dick.
see it on a daily basis. Somebody who was willing to use violence in order to attempt to seize power, to stay in power. Someone who represents unrecoverable catastrophe, frankly, in my view. And we have to do everything possible to ensure that he's not reelected. Given how close this race
Like what? Shoot him in the head?
is, in my view, again, it's not enough. You have many Republicans out there who are saying, well, we're not going to vote for him, but we will write someone else in.
Right.
And I think that this time around, that's not enough, that it's important to actually cast a vote for Vice President Harris.
Yeah, so she's going to vote for Vice President Harris and then maybe hope that he gets shot in the head. All right, so this is more Tom Cotton obliterates Liz Cheney and her loser father, wondering why they have decided to jump in with the Communist Party called the Democratic Party.
Dick Cheney was Vice President of the United States for 8 years. He was a senior member of the House. He was Chief of Staff to Gerald Ford. He worked tirelessly to advance Republican policies for a long time. You don't think his endorsement of a Democrat with that kind of pedigree is going to make a difference with swing voters?
I really don't.
Or never Trump voters who aren't sure about Harris?
Well, I mean, some of this is probably that Donald Trump beat his daughter in her last election by 39 points. I think most Americans are going to look at this race and compare the records they have. Again, it's a very unusual race. When you have a president who served in office, who brought good times to America, and you have Kamala Harris, a San Francisco liberal, who has brought to America exactly what you see in San Francisco as well.
Yeah, Daddy's probably just upset because his daughter's not in Congress anymore on loser fake committees. So Daddy's going to throw a little temper tantrum and go and support the warmonger Kamala. Sarah Huckabee Sanders came out and is also explaining that no one cares about Liz Cheney, okay? She has left the party a long time ago. She's thrown in with the Democrats. She is a anti-Republican hack. Here's Miss Huckabee Sanders.
I do think she actually is significantly in the minority here. You look across the board, prominent Republicans are supporting President Trump. But ultimately, I think she's a non-factor. I'm not trying to be rude, but you don't get to call yourself a conservative or a Republican when you support the most radical nominee that the Democrats have ever put up. That doesn't make you a conservative. It certainly doesn't make you a Republican. I think it makes you somebody who wants to protect the establishment. Frankly, I don't think this is news. It should come as no shock that Liz Cheney is not supporting the president. But what should come as a shock is that she is trying to call herself a conservative Republican or either one of those two words while supporting somebody who so clearly does not represent conservative principles.
Yeah, she's just an opportunist. She is for the war party. She represents the war interests, just like a good little lobbyist does. And so they're throwing a temper tantrum because Trump is looking like he's pulling ahead and they're freaking out about it. Bring out Dick Cheney. Maybe we'll get George Bush in on that too. Throw in George Bush. Think we give a crap? George Bush can endorse Kamala. It'll be perfect. Literally, it'd be perfect. Nikki Haley too. So here is Harris. She was out at some spice rack location and there are stories that this exchange was kind of faked or something like this. So let's watch this, see what she says. She's debating tomorrow. So she's getting some spices for her home cooking.
Actually, I'm honored to have their endorsement, and I think that
about the Cheneys.
What they both, as leaders who are well respected, are making an important statement that it's okay, and if not important, to put country above party. And I'm honored to have their support, and I think it's an important
You mean war above country, right?
statement right now. A lot of what I think is happening, and I was just talking with some folks here in Pittsburgh about it, is that people are exhausted about the division and the attempts to kind of divide us as Americans.
Ugh.
And them stepping up to make this public statement, I think, is courageous, but also for people like
The people who label everybody into multiple different categories. Oh, sorry, you're a white, male, straight Christian, so you don't belong anywhere. But everybody else gets multiple categories, multiple axes, right? You have like the gender dynamic, then you have like the racial dynamic, then you have the religious dynamic, and certain people matter, others don't. So they divide everybody all the time. Then they divide everybody on socioeconomic status, and you're poor because of the rich, even though they are the party of the rich. They bring the billionaires to their conventions after they lecture the billionaires, right? It's very bizarre behavior, but it's just more platitudes from her. How long is this going to last?
the folks I was just talking with. It really reinforces for them that we love our country and we have more in common than what separates us.
Okay, so brilliant, so profound. Thank you, Kamala.